Hey gang, it's Joey Gargiulo here. Hope all is well. And I am sitting here at the head trail at the base of Lone Mountain here in Vegas. It's my last day here. It's a beautiful day here in March. It really is. And I just want to let you take a look at the view around me. You can see is pretty awesome here. All kinds of awesome mountains in the background, right? Um, it's going to be a good hike today, and I'm sporting one of my favorite Run Good series, rungoodgear.com series hats, um, designed by the rock star Haley herself. And we're going to actually have a good talk today because I'm going to talk to you about a legend that I met on the poker circuit. And those of you who don't know, I am new to the poker scene. I just started touring WSOP, WPT, and Run Good series circuits in April. And as a new player, I'm always interested in meeting new and exciting people in the arena. And I like to surround myself with people that are more successful than me because you learn from them. And I tend to gravitate towards people who are champions, people who have rings, people who have bracelets, people that are dealers for a very long time because you learn a lot, and I have had the privilege of meeting some amazing, remarkable people. And I apologize for the shakiness of this video because I'm literally hiking up this mountain. I mean, look at the trail. I mean, that's the beginning of it somewhere behind me. Let's see, there it is. It's right there in the background. So this is going to be a different kind of video. But today I am speaking to you about a man that has an untold story. He is a hero. His name is Sergio Ramirez, six-time WSOP Circuit Ring Champion, Sergio Ramirez. Now, I first heard about Sergio when I was at the Cherokee stop in August. And there were these rumors that were flying around about this person who came out of nowhere. He had a ring, but he hadn't made a final table for a couple of years. And he came out of nowhere and he won 4 rings within a 1 week or a 10-day span. And there was this buzz in Cherokee, which, by the way, is a great location, and I will be making a video one day about Cherokee. I'm making a few videos, or actually quite a few. I got a new project going on. It's going to be really cool, and people are going to love it. And I'll talk about that another time. But right now, it's all about Sergio. So I'm in Cherokee, and I heard this buzz about this man that won 4 rings in like a week. And that is some feat if you think about it, right? But everybody that I knew at that time, nobody really knew his name. Nobody knew anything about him. They just heard somebody won a ring. And it happened in Choctaw, which is one of my favorite spots. Another one of my favorite spots. So in Choctaw, he won these rings. But who was he? What happened? So I did a quick Google search. And if you do it, you'll find it. There is a really cool article. The footing here is pretty loose. A lot of gravel, by the way. Look. So if you're going to do this hike, this mountain is in North Vegas. And it sits at the foot of like the Red Rock Park, where there's some huge mountains. And the way this mountain gets its name is because it's all by itself. You have a giant mountain range, and you have this one little mountain sticking there by itself, and that's how it's got its name, Lone Mountain. Pretty cool, right? So, wow, it's been a while since I hiked. Woo! And you know what's so weird? When you hike, you don't usually speak, and everybody knows I love to talk, but you have to remember to pause and get some air, take in the views. Anyway, Lone Mountain is supposedly going to have some amazing views up here of the strip, of the mountain range, of the valley. So can't wait to get to the top. But back to Sergio. I did this quick Google search and you'll find the article. It's on Poker News. And it's a pretty informative article. It basically talks about how which events he won, what he entered, how he had won a ring online before he went to Choctaw, and then went on to win these events. And it talks about the events he won. He won an impressive almost $60,000 in like mid-stake tournaments, which is kind of cool, like $400 entries. You know, that's pretty impressive, right? But what the article was missing was the true backstory. It was missing the information. Who is he? You know, where did he come from? What's his backstory? So, fast forward, January of this year, a few months ago, 2023, I had the pleasure of meeting Sergio. Now, I was lucky enough and put a lot of hard work in. At that point, I started to run pretty deep in a lot of tournaments. And I did cash 5 times while I was there, so I did have the opportunity to play with Sergio repeatedly in some deep tournaments. And I'll tell you right now, Sergio is one of these players that's so tricky because what you see is not what you get. His table image is polar opposite of what he really is. And that's dangerous because a lot of times we get to the poker table, and even in life, sometimes what happens is we have this perception of somebody based upon how they dress, how they act, the words that come out of their mouth, the expressions on their face. And sometimes we're tricked. And that is definitely one of Sergio's attributes. And it's huge because he plays right into it. So in Choctaw, I did have the pleasure to compete against him and watch this man in action. And I have to tell you, he really is a tricky player. He's very comfortable when he is in all different positions. Like literally, he's just as comfortable playing cards that are not even most people's ranges in the wrong position, because he's one of these players that doesn't use solver tables or, wow, feeling the altitude already, which is kind of cool. Oxygen. Anyway, he's one of these players that doesn't use solver tables or the normal traditional methods to decide what hands he's going to play, his bet sizes, whether he c-bets, whether he doesn't, that kind of stuff. He uses intuition, and his intuition is most of the time really spot on. And that's really dangerous. Wow, look at the view already. Holy shit. Pretty awesome. So, what I noticed about Sergio was that his chip stack just always seems to grow. And it grows in the most unusual ways. You know, sometimes he traps people. Sometimes he's super aggressive. Sometimes he's really passive. And he seems to know when to do those things and at the right times. You know, well, it's the same thing. When to do things is the same thing as the right times. Let's rephrase that. He seems to know the right times and the right places in the tournament, in a hand, in different streets, to switch to different gears and make the right decisions. And that's pretty darn good. You know, when somebody's able to navigate a field that's mostly recreational players, but some really talented pros, other champions all over the place, and they're able to navigate that field and do it with skill, do it with a positive EV experience most of the time. That's gold, it really is. So I started to talk with Sergio as much as I could, but it's tough to actually get his ear because he's so hyper concentrated when he's at a poker table that you really can't get much information out of him. And I'll tell you one thing, he's really, really fun to play with, and that's part of his table image. As a matter of fact, look at this, I had to go down to put my hand on a rock. It's getting a little challenging here. I love it. Nothing easy in life, and the things that are hard are more worthwhile, right? So I had some really cool experiences. I learned a lot from watching him, and we had a really cool moment, by the way, playing cash. So Sergio is very versatile. When I was in Choctaw, I actually did have the privilege of being at the rail when he won his 6th ring. It was like in a $400 one-day deep stack tournament. Those are really tough because the blinds go and the blinds and antes go up so quickly, and it was really, really inspiring watching this man with so many friends at the rail cheering him on. We're getting some altitude now. Look at this. I like it, but there's a lot higher to climb, isn't there? Always is in life. So if you're serious about poker, instead of after you get knocked out of a tournament, just going home, going back to your room, going to the slot machines, going to your food, if you hang out and observe the players who are able to persevere, who are able to reach heights that you didn't reach, and watch them as they do their magic, watch them win, watch them knock out players, watch them make miracle folds, like things that other people would never be able to do. Because the deeper a tournament goes, everybody knows, the stronger the talent. So why wouldn't you watch the last stages of a tournament? I mean, we do it all the time. We watch, if you're into poker, you watch live tables or taped tables or final tables. But unless you're one of the people that are competing in that arena, like, it doesn't make sense so much to watch a high roller table when you're not competing in a high roller field. But if you're competing in mid-level tournaments, you really don't have an opportunity too much to watch mid-level tournament final tables on tape, unless somebody happened to put it up on YouTube or something. And also, I don't care what anybody says, watching videos online like this video, that's kind of cool. Watching me climb this mountain, it's pretty awesome. But nobody knows what it feels like right now other than me, because I'm here. I'm witnessing it. I'm taking in I'm struggling to get some oxygen, catch my breath, taking in the views. I might be videoing right now, but I'm getting it all, trust me. And my zen is at the top of this summit. That's where I'm going to spend some time. A lot of people hike to the top of the mountain and go, that's nice. We got dinner reservations, let's go down to the bottom of the mountain. And they don't take the time just to chill and take in the zen. And that's what's most important, right? So there's a lot to be said about witnessing something live, being there in person, and watching Sergio win that ring, which isn't easy, by the way. A lot of people can get lucky once in a while, but the true measure of success is the ability to repeat success, if you think about it, right? And here's a man that not only makes final tables consistently, but he knows how to close them, which is really the ultimate hardest part. Being a closer, that says a thing or two about somebody in any arena, whether it be somebody winning a football, NFL football championship, Super Bowl. And trust me, being a New York native, having been a Buffalo fan during that era when Dallas destroyed them twice in the Super Bowl, handed them their 4th Super Bowl loss in a row, I know a thing or two about observing teams, observing competitors that just can't close. It's not that easy. It's not anything wrong with those people and those competitors. It's just it just puts an exclamation point on how difficult it really is to close, to bring it home. And seeing Sergio do that in person, wow, look at this view. Oh, shit. Woo! That's pretty awesome, right? Wow. Too many distractions. It's all good. But seeing Sergio do that in person, it inspired me. It actually motivated me to want to compete against him more. So much so that I knew that Sergio could be found in the cash room at Choctaw in Durant, Oklahoma, when he wasn't in a tournament. So I made a point. Oh, and by the way, I know I have a very strong accent. Everybody thinks it's Boston, but it really is a Long Island accent. And it's been compromised, but also I think of it as being enhanced by all the traveling I've been doing because I'm picking up different accents from different parts of the country. So the people from New York are probably saying, what the hell? That's not a New York accent anymore. And those of you not from New York saying, oh my God, what a strong accent he has. But it is what it is. It just makes us characters, right? It makes us unique. Anyway, I knew that Sergio could be found in the cash room. And I had nothing to do one night, and I go, and there he was. He was sitting at a 2-5 table. Maybe it was a PLO table, actually. Can't remember. But there was a long waiting list. And I put myself on the list for that table. And sat myself at another 2-5 table, 2-5 holding table, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was a 2-5 holding table. Just to wait. Because I just wanted an opportunity to test my skills against Sergio's. Have some fun, too, because that week in tournaments, we had some really, really cool, what I call Joey versus Sergio confrontations. And they were always cool. And what made me really motivated was that I knew that Sergio never really won a hand from me. And that was kind of cool because here's this guy with 6 rings. I mean, he's got me to fold certain hands. But when it came down to showdown, when it came down to the river, I never put all my chips in or any of my chips in. Never made a bet that was called that I didn't win the hand. And I never called one of his bets that I didn't win either. And of course, our ego gets to us. I'm like, I got Sergio's number. No, I don't. I probably got lucky. Maybe it was skill. I'm sure it was skill too. Maybe it's just my style of play is a style that is tricky for Sergio to navigate. It's pretty good, but we're not always the best at playing against every person and every style. So knowing that my style of play matched up very well against Sergio's, I'm like, let's see if we can win some cash from Sergio. All right, right? Tournament's a lot different. Now, nobody knows me really pretty much. People starting to know me, but most people don't know me in the tournament arena. But I have a pretty strong cash background for sure. I've been playing cash since I was a little kid. So I knew that my style of play and my skills were more honed towards cash than they were tournaments. It's pretty even now, but it's getting more towards tournaments, but there's no substitute for what you grew up with and your foundations, right? And my background is in cash. I admit that, right? So as luck would have it, the table that Sergio was on broke. And Sergio finds himself in a seat opposite of me at my table, 2-5 cash. And chips are going back and forth between us, but nothing big. $50 to him, $50 to me. No real major confrontations. It wasn't because neither one of us were outplayed. It was just because neither one of us really had cards that really could do battle against each other. Well, this is like around I guess around midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And a lot of people at our table are drinking. The whole poker room is drinking. And things started to get fun. Let's put it that way. And what happened was, is first, somebody started, we're going to make it a mandatory straddle. Kind of cool. Now we're playing 2-5-10 all of a sudden. I like it. And then some genius decides, drunk genius, right? They're the smartest, aren't they? He decides he's going to straddle and not look at his cards and raise his straddle or call raises without looking at them. And he wins a couple of hands, loses some, wins some, and all of a sudden, half the table is doing this, including Sergio and myself. And what the hell, we're having some fun. We got some stacks of chips behind us. You know, cash is so much more relaxed in tournaments, right? And we're having a good time. The only thing is, I'm one of those players who learned at a very young age, mainly playing in my grandmother's lap, that I'm not allowed to look at my cards until I look at everybody else, look at their cards. Grandma would not let me look at her cards unless I look at Uncle Sal's cards and Uncle Angelo's cards and Aunt Lucille's and my dad's, because you can get some tells. And then I was allowed to look at her cards. Now, we were playing 7 stud back then because that's what everybody played on the East Coast, but it's the same concept. You can figure out who's interested in their hand, who's about to fold it, you know, who's just doesn't even know what the hell to do with their hand. You can get a lot of tells by people by just observing them. But most people at the poker table are very shallow and narrow-minded. They just are concentrated either on playing their hand or going on their phone, texting their friends, playing Sudoku, playing online tournaments while they're playing cash or tournaments live. There's so many people that just don't really even pay attention. So cards go in the air, and I look down and I have pocket aces. And I immediately take one of the cards that are dealt to me and I push it closer to the person to the right of me. And the other card I put sideways. So when you looked at my cards, it looked like I never looked at them. But I did. And also, being a hawk at the table, I noticed that everybody else did not look at their cards except Sergio, who took a peek. And Sergio was unaware that I know that he peeked at his cards. Well, fast forward. Turns out Sergio's holding pocket kings. Of course he is, right? It always works out that way. And Sergio announces to the table that he's going to make this a raise, and he is not folding his hand because he just feels so good about it. And the pot was already like, you know, a few $100s, and Sergio raises like pot-sized raise, and folds around to me, and now I'm like, I'm going to have a little game here. And I said, really, Sergio? You know that I'm last to act after you, and you're announcing that you won't fold your hand, that you know it's going to win? This is me, Sergio. We've already had Joey versus Sergio confrontations before, or challenges, or whatever you want to call them. So, and I'm so loud at the table that I always am, but half the poker room can't help to hear this. And people on the adjacent tables, a lot of them his friends, some my friends, some strangers, some dealers that were waiting to be pushed into tables, they started to pay attention to this. And I announced, I said, fine, Sergio, let's really see what happens here. And I make a raise, another $200 or so. So here's a $200 pot that Sergio put $200 into as a bet, and I just made it a $600 pot. And Sergio squirmed a little, smiled, because the man always smiles. It doesn't matter if he's losing, winning, if he's on the receiving end of variance so bad that it's hitting him like a shovel. People hit one-outers on him, and he just smiles, because that's the type of player he is. And by the way, when I interviewed Sergio for this, and I'll tell you about my interview in a few minutes, that's the image, part of the image that Sergio wants. Sergio would like to think of people, like people to think of him as a fun but obnoxious person to play with. Obnoxious meaning, God, I can't win against this guy, or God, he's put me in a think tank. And that's the kind of player, and that's the kind of person that he aims to be not just, oh, it's a little challenging right here. All right, got to get on my hands and knees for this one. All right, so that's the kind of person that Sergio wants to be, his image off the table as well. Because, I just navigated up that little incline without a problem. It might get noisy here for a minute because people are going to be walking by. I apologize. But Sergio aims to maintain that image off the table as well, because it plays right into the deception. It plays into the deception, but it also plays into the threat, because people get frustrated and then people start to loosen up their range against him, trying to get him, or they tighten up their range against him because they got burnt so many times. It's a really cool table image if you think about it. Anyway, Sergio smiles. He announces to the entire poker room that he doesn't know what to do because he has pocket kings. And he turns over the kings and shows everybody. And the man is so intuitive. I guess a light bulb went off in his head and he said, why would Joey do that? Maybe Joey did look at his cards. Now, I know he didn't know that I looked at my cards because he's one of those people. He goes on his phone sometimes. You know, he doesn't really always pay attention. Maybe that's something that he needs to improve with. It is what it is. Or maybe he's so good that he did pay attention. Maybe he did see me look at my cards and I just don't know it. For the split second that I had to take my eyes off of him and the table and look at my cards, maybe he saw me look at my cards the way I saw him look at his. So, long story short, this actually ended up being a much longer story than I can really ever explain. The man throws 2 green chips at me, 2 $25 chips, and goes, I'll pay you to see one of your cards. Can you imagine? So I'm like, sure, pick one. So he picks the card closest to me. And I do this whole act. I flip it over. And it's an ace. And everybody's like, whoa! And Sergio, despite the pressure from everybody that knows him, people are actually saying, Sergio's never going to fold this. He never folds pocket kings pre-flop, especially in cash. He folded. If that doesn't say anything about him as a player, I don't know what does. And of course, I went on to do this whole crazy act. I'm like, well, let's see if you would have won or not. Do the whole act. I'm pretty good at acting because I was in sales for like 30-something years. And I pick my card, and flip it, the other card, flip it over, and everybody sees the ace, and the whole room is in uproar. Talk about a fun moment, but also talk about how Sergio was able to walk away from pocket kings. Pretty cool, right? And I would say that was a turning point of he and I being transformed from being just competitors and nemesises to each other at the poker table to the beginning of a friendship. Kind of cool, right? So fast forward. 3 weeks ago, I found myself with a trip booked here to Vegas, and I invited Sergio. I knew he was coming into town to play in a WSOP circuit event at Horseshoe, which is formerly known as Bowie's. And I invited him to be my roommate, which he was for a week. Really cool. Wow, look at this. It's getting steeper. Oh my God. Oh, here we go. I have to wait for people to come down this little narrow path because it's a steep, rocky incline, and only like one person can go at a time. In the meantime, I'll let everybody look at the views. Come on, you guys. Pretty cool. Wow, right? Oh, shit. Oh, God. Come on, you two. A little slippery here. Run, do this. Little kids trying to navigate. Come on, you guys got it. That's the way to do it, man. When in doubt, when you're going down, just get on your butt. Not even looking where you gotta go. That's the way to do it, right? Look where your next step is going to be. All right. Yeah, this is all about eyeballing stuff and making sure you're footing. Well, it's just like life, right? Don't take a step unless your footing is solid. You have to know where your foot is going. Everything's about the foundation in life, right? It always is. You don't have a solid foundation, everything else just go downhill from there, literally from up here. And trust me, we're pretty high up. All right, I have a clear path that I am going to make my way up. The rocks are a little slippery, it is what it is. So Sergio and I, we roomed together for a week in Vegas. And that's when I found out about the real story. It's an amazing story. So it turned out that Sergio's big run with his rings was a situation where he had to find the most incredible strength just to even walk foot into the Grand Ballroom at Choctaw. And I'll tell you why. Over the summer, in July, towards the end of the series, WSOP series, there was a very bad incident that happened. A lot of people don't know about it, but while we were competing in the Paris Ballroom in the middle of the Strip, at the far south end of the Strip, or towards the south end of the Strip, at the MGM Grand, some idiot threw a rock through a glass window. And the noise that rock made when it shattered caused a chain reaction of people running for their lives, screaming, because they thought there was a shooter. And keep in mind, Vegas has some PTSD from the Mandalay Bay shooting. We all know that. And plus, you can't put the TV on like any month and find out about a mass shooting. And it turned into a human stampede. A swarm of people running for their lives, knocking over people in their way, knocking over everything in their way. And that swarm of people overflowed from the MGM over the crosswalk into New York, over the crosswalk into the Tropicana, and down the Las Vegas Strip. And that stampede made its way all the way to where we were in the Paris Ballroom. Now, I was competing in the 5K, the last 5K Texas Hold'em No Limit event, bracelet event, and unknown to me until this month, Sergio was in the day 2 restart of the $1,500 closer. He was already in the money, I think, at that point. I'm pretty sure he was close to the bubble. And imagine an entire arena full of hundreds of players, but it's quieter than like the rest of the series because there's only like 3 events going on at this point. There's no more sit and goes. I don't even think there's any cash going on. Things are starting to unwind a little bit, so it was quieter than usual, and it was really serious. I mean, 5Ks are very, very serious, and day 2 restarts, they're pretty serious as well. And lo and behold, in the middle of the silence and the concentration, every door that was lined around the arena burst open with men and women screaming at the top of their lungs, running, "Shooter!" And as they started making their way towards me, I'm seated towards the back of the arena. I just see this tidal wave of poker tables getting turned over, cocktail waitresses with their hands like this getting plummeted, dealers getting knocked down, chairs going up in the air, and people getting up out of their seats, running with the swarm. And it was terrifying. Now, I'll tell you what happened to me in a little while, but Sergio was closest to where those doors were. He was towards where the stage was, where, if anybody knows that arena. And he found himself in a situation where instead of running, he hit the floor for cover, and then he started crawling along the floor in tears, literally in tears, because we all thought we were going to die. We just thought either we were going to die or we were going to be severely injured. We expected at any second men were going to burst through that door with automatic rifles and just start shooting us like sitting ducks. And Sergio crawled along the floor, and miraculously he found a woman player that we're friends with, who also was crawling around on the floor. And I asked Sergio, I'm like, "Oh, did you come to, her condolences and rescue and calm her down. And he said, Joey, I was in more tears than her. I don't even think she was in tears. She was calming me down. That's how petrified I was. And the way the story goes is they made their way out of the arena eventually, and they sought refuge in a lady's bathroom, in a woman's bathroom, where they were hiding in a stall. And if you think about it, that's a dead end. Shooter comes in there. It's like a scene right out of a horror movie, right? The shooter comes in and starts just kicking stall doors open. It's only a matter of time before, even if you're standing on the toilet seat, that they find you or they hear you, because how do you hold back the fear, the sounds of fear? How do you hold that back? Well, Sergio explained to me how that made him feel. Now, backstory behind this. Sergio wasn't even supposed to be in Vegas anymore at that point. He was supposed to be halfway to Choctaw, competing in the next WSOP circuit event there. But he doesn't really play a lot of online poker. And being in Vegas and knowing that WSOP has ring events online that run simultaneously. Oh my God, look at this view. Woohoo! Getting there. I love it. So knowing that there was an opportunity to play WSOP online, Sergio decides, it's getting hot out here, Sergio decides that he's going to stay back a couple of days and compete in an online event. And he chose a PLO tournament, a ring event. And lo and behold, he wins that event. He wins his second ring. So at the time when he won it, seemed like the best decision. But finding himself stuck, trapped in a stall, waiting for a shooter to come blow his brains out, in his mind, all he had to say to himself, or he could say to himself, was, man, what the F am I doing here? Why did I have to try to win that stupid goddamn ring? I should have my ass halfway to Choctaw, and I made this happen to myself. I caused this. That's the kind of man he is, right? Anyway, while he's hiding in the stall, I got up and ran with the rest of the crowd in the same direction they were running towards. There's a lounge in the back where the high rollers played. I played in there once. It's kind of cool. It's called the King's Lounge. I played it once over the summer. And they have free sandwiches and free drinks, for the high rollers. It was kind of cool. I'm not a high roller, but I won a lot of money over the summer. Not a lot, but I won enough that I was able to put a few $1,000s down on one of those tables and compete. It was kind of cool. And I had some fun. And in the back of the King's Lounge are exit doors, and I ran with the crowd. And I'm not the fastest runner, right? Look at me, I'm stopping to catch my breath, and I'm hiking a summit. I know that a lot of people can't do this, but a lot of people would have probably been at the top already. It is what it is. Take my time, get acclimated to the altitude. It is what it is. Is that the right word? I think it is. Okay, anyway. What I did was I ran with the crowd. And unknown to us, when our stampede of people exited the doors to the sidewalk, perpendicular to us on a road that was perpendicular to the strip, there was a swarm of people running from the strip down that side road along the side of Paris. And when our two stampedes collided, most of us that first exited the door were knocked down. And I was plummeted to the ground. And people were running on my back, literally running on my back. And then every once in a while, somebody would fall on my back. And another person would fall on my back. And the next thing you know, more so than right now, I was gasping for air because I was unable to even expand my diaphragm to breathe. And the only sensation I can assimilate it to was, I do a lot of kayaking. I must have either been kayaking or whitewater rafting down rapids, and my craft's capsized, and I was unlucky enough to find myself, my leg trapped under a boulder. And I could feel myself losing oxygen. And when that happens to you, you have two instincts. Number one, get to the surface, get out from under the boulder. And number two, get to the shore, get out of the flow. And in this situation, I was in a flow of people. So what I did is somehow, I don't know how, I managed to squirm my way out from underneath that crowd that was literally laying on top of me and people running on top of them and falling on them. And I made my way in that scenario. The shoreline was the wall of the building along the sidewalk. And when I got there, I felt heavy, like it was hard to walk. And I realized that a man, the very first man that fell on top of me, was still clinging to my back. And I literally dragged him to the wall with me. And now the two of us are sitting there with our hands against the wall, moving to the right, because the crowd is coming from the left. And the man is to my left, doing the same thing. But the crowd was so chaotic and just not caring where they were running that I watched this man's face get banged into the wall 3 times, and his nose was broken, all bloody. Now, those of you who know me know that I was born with a bunch of vision problems. Long story, but I've had 3 cornea transplants. I've been blind on and off in my life, and one or both my eyes many times. And I'm currently blind in one eye right now. And all I could think about was I had to protect my one good eye. And so I turned, but at the same time, I had to protect my nose because God knows I have a big ass nose, right? So I turned my back to the wall, covered my good eye with one hand, and put one hand behind my head to protect my skull from being shattered. And my hand was all bruised, by the way, the one against the brick wall. And I just kept my journey going, sliding along that wall. And lucky for me, the next thing I knew, the wall disappeared because it was the entrance to a parking garage. And as soon as I took a step into that parking garage, it was the most surreal experience because it was like watching the crowd through the lens of a camera or on TV. Here are hundreds of people running for their lives, so tunnel vision, hyper-focused on running, following the person in front of them, the whole herd effect thing, right? That nobody realized that salvation was just 2 steps to the left in this parking garage where it was quiet and serene. Anyway, that's where I was able to hide until everything was over. I actually found a woman in the garage. I went 2 levels up and I found hid in the middle of the parking garage, figuring, behind a car, figuring if somehow, some chance, police were chasing these active shooters, they wouldn't be seeing me hiding behind the car because I could just use the car as a barrier and just, go on the other side of the car. The opposite side they entered the room. Well, when we made our way back into the Paris arena, it was actually more of an upsetting scenario than running for our lives because people were bloody. Daniel Negreanu had his gash on his hand. People were being triaged. There were broken bones, dislocated extremities. I mean, you name it. People crying. People in shock. People laying on the ground, almost like in a comatose state because their bodies were in shock. And being a Eagle Scout and having a lot of first aid training, I was glad to help triage a lot of people and minister first aid. You get a ballroom like that, they don't have a first aid kit that's equipped to handle mass crowds of injuries. I mean, think about what kind of injuries happen in a ballroom. Somebody slips on the floor, somebody might cut themselves on a piece of glass, a splinter, choking. All right, that happens, but you don't need a first aid kit for that. So the first aid kit that the ballroom had about 6 Band-Aids and 1 roll of gauze. It wasn't really well stocked for a crowd. And I travel with a first aid kit, believe it or not. I know it sounds kind of geeky, but I am a geek. And I got one of the security guards escort me up to my room, and I brought my first aid kit down and administered the first aid. It was kind of cool. Anyway, Sergio got to witness the aftermath like the rest of us did. And let me tell you something. It left a lasting impression on all of us. So, fast forward. He does make his way to Choctaw. And that's his very next place to play. Look at this view. And registers for his first tournament. Walks into the arena. And PTSD sets in. He loses it. And it was tough for Sergio to admit this, and I give him a lot of credit. It's tough for a man to admit weakness, but he lost it the first time he walked into the Choctaw Arena. So much so that he had to leave. Unregistered for the tournament if he already registered in, or not bothered to register, whatever he did. He didn't compete that first day. He went back to his room or whatever he had to do, but that's how bad it was. And this is what makes Sergio's feat so amazing. This is what makes Sergio a badass, a Choctaw legend, a circuit badass. Because the next day, Sergio gets up, new day, new ambitions, new hope. As hard as it was, he gets his ass down to that arena again, down to that ballroom, the Grand Ballroom in Choctaw in Durant, registers for a tournament, and wins the whole freaking thing. He won his third ring. And what's even more amazing is, 6 days later, he wins another one. And the day after that, he wins another one. I mean, that's insane, right? Everybody knows what the struggles are and the challenges are sitting at a poker table, trying to navigate the field. First, trying to get past the bubble. No, in the beginning, it was trying to get past all the chaotic nonsense that goes on, all the all-ins and all the sloppy play. And then to make it past the bubble and then make it to a final table, that's a challenge in itself. Making it to the top 3, another challenge, and then closing the tournament, never mind 3. But that's how Sergio is. When I watched him in January win his ring, like a week later, he showed his versatility and entered the horse tournament and wins that too. It wasn't a ring event, but he won the horse tournament. 2 final tables. 2 final tables in January, right? 2 wins in January. Maybe he had 3 final tables in January. I don't know, but 2 championships, 2 first places in January, right? 4 of them back in July. This guy is a madman. He's a genius. He's skilled. And the best part is he's very humble. You know, he doesn't come from money, right? Sergio was primarily raised by his mom. His mom is Italian. His dad is Mexican. His dad didn't live with him when he was younger. He was raised by his mom. He has 10 half-step siblings. Can you imagine? And he would spend summers with his dad, either in Mexico or in Texas, where his dad lived. And it was his mom who helped mold him into the man that he is today. It was his mom who was the one who inspired him about gambling and about winning money. Not so much gambling, about taking calculated risks. Yes, I'm on my hands and knees right now. You have no idea. I'll explain in a little while. Actually, I took the hard way, which is okay. I like that. It was Sergio's mom, because she liked to play bingo. And I am on my hands and knees, but, well, not my hands and knees, but I am absolutely 100% careful right now, and I'll explain why in a minute. It was Sergio's mom. She played bingo, and that lit a torch in his mind. Fun to play games of chance. Fun to win money. And he started playing poker when he was 12 years old. But any of us that grew up on the East Coast know we never knew what Texas Hold'em was. I mean, we played 7-card stud, 5-card draw, and different mixed games. And so it should be no surprise that Sergio was a very, very skilled mixed game player. His favorite game is Badusi, which I hate because I just run too well, and I can't figure it out. But Sergio, man, he's a mastermind, and he's very versatile. Superhero in my mind, and the man knows how to climb mountains. And speaking of climbing mountains, look where we are. We did it. We are at the summit. And trust me, this isn't easy for me because I am afraid of heights, but it is what it is. We are at the summit of Lone Mountain, my friends. Look at this. Oh my God. What a view. What a view we have here. I mean, this is crazy. I'm going to go like this a little so you can see it all and get my fat ass face out of the way. There's a strip out there. Great view of the strip. The valley. It's a long way down. Oh my God. Red Rock Mountains Range. I think that's what it's called. Somebody from Vegas is watching this and saying, Joey, you don't know what the hell you're talking about probably, but I don't care. It sounds good, right? I mean, what a view. Climbing mountains, my friends. One step at a time. Just watching our footing. Navigating, right? Enjoying life. Having fun. Maybe being a little obnoxious like Sergio. That's okay. You know what? We beat to our own drum. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. And if you happen to be in an arena and you come face to face with Sergio, pat him on the back and say, hey, Sergio, man, you are a hero, man. You're a rock star. He really is. Peace out, everybody.